From joining the super crowded bandwagon of musician biopics to living up to the golden standards of its predecessor, I'm not there. Here's why Timothee Chalamet's upcoming Bob Dylan biopic is a bad idea. As soon as this project was announced, one question was on everyone's lips. Don't we already have too many music biopics? And that's true. In the past few years, films about popular singers have become all the rage, like Rocket Man covering the flamboyant life of Elton John, James Brown's Get On Up, the controversial Bohemian Rhapsody diving into the band, Queen, and one of the most talked about films of 2022, Elvis. It seems like a new biographical film is popping up everywhere you look, so much so that it has now carved its own genre. But is this a success? That's up for debate. Some of these films are smashing hits, while others miserably tank at the box office, attracting intense hostility from the audience and critics alike. Now, Timothee's Bob Dylan film is ready to join the oversaturated, temperamental genre. It's titled A Complete Unknown, after a lyric from the singer's most famous song, Like a Rolling Stone. Interestingly, this is not the first film about Bob's life. The 2007 musical drama I'm Not There already has that spot. His stans called it an epic spectacle, but more on that later. Get this. In 2005, Martin Scorsese also made a documentary, No Direction Home, celebrating the legendary singer's life. Both of these projects got the seal of approval from the musician himself. In that case, is a new film needed? So far, most of the audience is skeptical. People are quickly growing tired of music biopics, mostly because they've become so cliched. No, seriously, all of them keep using the same worn-out formula. And by the looks of A Complete Unknown's synopsis, it's no different from the rest. It's set to cover 6 years of the pop culture icon's career, from his 1960 beginning in New York's folk scene until his unfortunate motorbike accident in 1966. Now here's where things get frustrating. This is almost the same plot as most music biopics. They start with the singer's early life, preferably before fame or a life-changing moment in their career. You often get flashbacks to their frustrating childhood environment, like James Brown's abusive mother in Get On Up, or Freddie Mercury's parents not believing in his talent in Bohemian Rhapsody. Then boom, life picks up. There's the same old montage of concerts and performances, just the legend living his best life. According to IMDb in this regard, our upcoming project may focus on Bob's revolutionizing the electric guitar performance at the 1965 Newport Folk Festival. Finally, as a climax, the dark days cast a heavy shadow over everything. This could be the American songwriter's accident in A Complete Unknown. It all boils down to the slow-fading nostalgic text before the credits, either cheering for the singer's legacy if they're dead or updating their post-movie life if alive. Sums it up pretty nicely, don't you think? But let's be honest, the fatigue is real. If the biopic genre is indeed here to stay, it needs to liven things up with something avant-garde, not just give a boring overview of their career. That's the recipe for a kick-ass, all-worthy film. But I won't deny, even the repetitive music biopics still sell big time. And that brings me to our next issue. A Complete Unknown could be in it for the money. After all, whether the film's plot is flat or not, the musician's diehard fans eat it up, flocking to the theater to decide for themselves. This brings staggering profits, and even if the movie fails to impress, it has already done sufficient business at the box office. What's more, the star-studded cast brings their fandoms along. That's an ongoing Hollywood trope, isn't it? Cast a popular face and the movie will take off without an issue. The upcoming Bob Dylan flick may be doing something similar too. Timothee Chalamet is a crowd favorite, and by stepping into the lead role, he'll introduce his young zealots to the classic singer. Adding more star power, the red-hot Benedict Cumberbatch is playing Pete Seeger, Monica Barbaro is Joan Baez, and Elle Fanning is portraying his girlfriend, Sylvie Russo. This is just the initial cast, and it's already promising. Now all of them, especially Tim, have a solid chance of getting an Oscar with this project. That's another attractive aspect of biopics. They tend to sweep the Academy Awards. Just in 2022, King Richard, The Eyes of Tammy Faye took over the nominations. 2023 brought The King Elvis to the forefront. No wonder Hollywood is obsessed with this genre. But just because something sells doesn't mean you keep diving into the deep end. Making a movie just to get the popular tropes is a bad idea. Now, even if none of it is true for a complete unknown, it has another issue hanging over its head: the director's dilemma. James Mangold is set to take over the directorial chair, and that's interesting to say the least. On the outside, he's an Academy Award-nominated filmmaker with loads of shining projects under his belt. From fan-favorite comic adaptations, The Wolverine and Logan, to the Tom Cruise starrer action comedy Night and Day, he's done it all. And if we're talking about biographies, the director is highly acclaimed for Ford and Ferrari, and the top-rated Johnny Cash feature, Walk the Line. A director experienced in smash-hit biopics, what more could you want? But the trouble arises with this particular singer. Bob Dylan isn't a straight shooter like Cash. The charismatic singer gives off major mysterious vibes and is considered an ever-changing artist. You can see in his endless interviews how he constantly changes his demeanor. There's no definitive personality to portray for him, so both Chalamet and Mangold have their work cut out for them. Some folks are even worrying that, while James may be a top-notch director, his stylistic sense may not be what the movie needs, especially if it wants to break free of biopic fatigue. What's more, this project needs meticulous deliberation, but is the Copland and heavy writer ready to offer it? Yes, the Bob Dylan biopic is his passion project, but it has been going through a pre-production haze for 3 years. The project was announced in January 2020, but then James got tied up in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and they finally got more updates about this in May 2023, and potentially troubling ones at that. Recently, the director dropped a bombshell that Timothee will be singing in the movie. Whoa, that's a bold move for the Dune star. Yes, his acting prowess knows no bounds, but singing a legend's songs? That's a bit difficult for the audience to digest. Recently, Austin Butler put his vocal cords to the test in Elvis, and while he got massive praise, the nasal tenor became too much for the viewers. Some folks worry that Chalamet will run into the same problem, but he's religiously committed to the role. I'll give him that. Ever since his casting as Bob was announced in 2020, the French-American actor has been training hard. Word on the street is he's even hired Butler's voice coach, Eric Vetro, to nail the singing. While the passion is admirable, some Dylan fans on Reddit are still not convinced. One of them is cringing thinking about Chalamet singing Visions of Johanna. Others don't want the actor to even try singing nasally like Bob. But from what I've heard through the grapevine, he is planning to do that. Oh boy. Some acknowledge Lil Timmy Tim's acting and now viral rapping skills, but even they accept that pulling off the singer's voice automatically seems hard. Another Reddit user chimed in, calling it a real deceptive challenge for Chalamet. It sounds about right to me. For now, the viewers may get a peek at his singing prowess before a complete unknown. Apparently, the Little Women star is doing his singing for Wonka too. But let's say he manages to do a good job, the film still has to live up to some high standards. Like the first Bob Dylan biopic, I'm Not There. And trust me, competing with it ain't gonna be easy. I'd say this Todd Haynes film was ahead of its time. It took the ultimate out-of-the-box approach by not just narrating a life story. Instead, the film took 6 insanely talented actors like Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, and Cate Blanchett, and depicted them as different personas of Dylan. And who would have thought Kate would be the best Bob Dylan? With an audacious twist like this 2007 flick could go big or go home. Luckily for it, it went to infinity and beyond. Critics loved it, and the audience too found it riveting, despite the movie not being everyone's cup of tea. Even Bob himself said the film wasn't made to appease the audience. It's just a good movie with incredible actors. And you know what? This is exactly the kind of bold and risky approach needed in the current music biopics. And unfortunately for a complete unknown, this is what it needs to beat. Only time will reveal if it manages to do that or not. So from living up to the golden standards of I'm Not There to joining the super crowded bandwagon of musician biopics, that's why Timothee Chalamet's upcoming Bob Dylan film is a bad idea.